7, we went to another reorg, and that's when they pulled the superintendents, and then the rules tightened. Also at that time, headquarters and area started funding more of the higher level requirements, where at the earlier time frame, all of the $1 billion was sent down here for
yeah. Textbook issues. Mm-hmm. What discretions on the school managed funds that are managed, if you will, by the principals, what discretion do they have to move funds from one category to another?
They do. They can do that, but they are also told that if they use, I'm just going to throw this out as an example, it's just hypothetical, but say the high school used curricular money for athletics, they better not.
No URR or UFRs on.
Yeah, they better not, they are held accountable. You know, so I always tell them, and usually what they do is they'll either call or send an email and say, I'd like to move, so, you know, I've bought all the furniture, we don't need any furniture because we're getting the buy from here and the, you know, and I would like to move that up to curricular. And there's no questions asked. If it's a move that might be a little questionable, I always just advise them, you realize that when the question comes down, why did you do this? It's going to be directed at you.
Okay, so
that typically comes to me whenever they want to move funds.
I'm trying to understand.
And then I make a arbitrary, capricious decision to approve or disapprove.
No, so at the school level, at the principal level, they can move funds. I'm not saying arbitrarily or whatever.
Yeah.
They understand what's
With
the
approval.
priorities on the ground.
Exactly.
Within these certain categories, because
Right.
they are funded on a per student level, and some things change.
Right.
So they have that discretion within reason.
Right.
They also identify and prioritize at their level UFRs.
Yes.
And then at the superintendent level, you have a 500 per FTE, if you will, fund.
Which is basically for supplies and equipment and, you know, folders,
Yes.
et cetera.
But that's at your discretion how you
Right.
distribute that. Okay.
Yeah.
Spend it, yeah.
What I didn't go into detail in this, when I said that they manage it, when a document is put in for expenditure, every document comes electronically through my office for certification of funds. The fund certification is up here and not at the school level. So either myself or one of the analysts that are certifying the fund always looks at what it is, because there's always things. One item that it seems so immaterial, but bottled water. You can't use appropriated funds to buy bottled water if there's potable water available. You know, well, there may be a field day or something, you know, and it would be much more convenient to, so the point I'm trying to make is every purchase, even though the principal approves the purchase and they're buying what it's scrutinized at this level.
You ensure that the appropriate funds are used for the appropriate reason.
Right.
Okay.
And there are times when I get a request for something, I'm right in Dr. Calvano's office saying, you know, does this seem reasonable? You know, what do you know, and then him and the principals may have some back and forth, and we may pursue and we may not. But that happens very seldom.
Okay.
Any other questions on budget? Thank you, Ms. Rank.
Okay,
Really
thank
appreciate
you
your
for
time.
allowing me.
Good job.
We're going to review school board policy. Mike, do you want to start?
I've got some recommendations for the school board policy. First off, when I brought this up the other day, I meant to bring up that I believe we're responsible for reviewing school district policy, the whole document, not just the school board section of it. So I'd like to suggest that for a future meeting. Is that your understanding of this, Dr. Cavano? Or
We have district policies that cover, yes, more than just school board policy, if you will. Actually, you bring up a good point in that a lot of those policies have been, if you will, taken over by regulations that management has promulgated. So to review that booklet of policies, I think is a good idea. You might want to establish a working group or, whatever you want to do, but clearly that needs to be reviewed. And we need to certainly bring it up to date and make sure that it's in compliance with the existing rules and regulations that have come down through the past 15 years or so.
I think it's a good idea also because our policy ensures that when we're dealing with other stakeholders, they're on a level playing field and they can have the same accurate rule book of what the ground rules are. On that note, I've got some things from the school board policy, some housekeeping changes, and some things that I've just observed and talked about with parents that I'd like to propose changes. And I'll pass these down. 2, 3, 4. We can go down line by line and review these, or reserve for a future time, whatever your preference would be on that.
What would the school board like to do? All the members, would you like to set up a working committee to go ahead and work on this, get it done? Or would you like us to discuss it now and make changes as,
The school
it's up-
board policy section I'm prepared to discuss right now. District policy I think is going to be much bigger.
Do you want to do a working committee or working group for the district policy, and then we review this? I just want opinions as to how everybody would like to do this.
I'd be fine with either way.
Well, if I can interject something, I think now is probably an appropriate time to do it, since we're talking about making changes to the policies. An email came out from you, Diana, regarding this issue, and you echoed what Dr. Calvano said just a few minutes ago about how a lot of things have changed, a lot of the authorities have been stripped away, and that sort of thing. So that prompted me to make a phone call to the Office of General Counsel at Peachtree City as well, and I spoke with Ms. Cheryl Smith at the Office of General Counsel. She's also the lady that provided our initial school board training in September and also provided us with this policy that we have been led to believe is the doctrine that we are to operate from. And I asked her specifically about the Department of Defense Instruction 1342.25 dated October 30th, 1996, which I believe Dr. Calvano referred to a moment ago. And this is the document that is a SecDef level policy that outlines the duties and responsibilities of all school boards in the entire DODEA system, not just our board. And so I asked Ms. Smith, I said, this is a policy from 1996, has it been superseded? And she confirmed that no, it has not been superseded, and that in fact this policy is current policy, and that is why we were given this policy at our training, and that is and has not been superseded. So I guess I'm at a place right now where, to be quite honest, I feel like we're getting a lot of misinformation and runaround with regard to this issue, because we're asking to do things that we're directed to do from a SecDef level. And as we ask to do that, it seems that barriers are being put up, and we're not doing that anymore, and the budget is fixed and there's no discretion, but then we find out today perhaps there is some discretion in the budget down at the principal's level. So what I would like is a little more transparency and a little more honesty and a little more familiarity with the document that is essentially our Constitution as a Board of Education. And it outlines clearly what it is we're supposed to be doing. It clearly mentions participation in the budget process. It clearly mentions that we're to do a on-site appraisal. Everything is outlined right here in black and white. And then every time we've received an answer back that we don't do that anymore, we get this vague answer like, well, the district bylaws say that we don't do it that way. And just as an example, we asked about holding a closed meeting in order to discuss the superintendent's performance appraisal. And the first answer we got back was, well, we have to do it in May according to the bylaws. Now, I don't know if I have the same bylaws that everyone else has. I was given these from the training that I attended. I can't find that anywhere in here, and I've read it pretty thoroughly. I can't find it anywhere in the Department of Defense instruction either.
That
So-
particular point, decision was made by Dr. Middlemiss that that's when it's done for all of the district superintendents, of which there are 6. That's not my decision.
And that's fine, sir, but that's an entirely separate issue from us being able to hold a meeting to discuss it. And what was put out was we can't even talk about it until May. That was what was initially put
But
out.
what-
So we continued to push and eventually started to make some headway.
What is it that, I'm a little confused. What is it that you want to discuss regarding the appraisal plan? Do you want to go line by line after being?
I want
with
to
us-
have that meeting, as we discussed, because you put out an email saying there would be a closed meeting in conjunction with this one to have that discussion. And yes, I do want to discuss that. I'm using that as an example of how we've been kind of given vague and misleading information. So, I can read through a string of emails that,
But I don't understand where vague or misleading. I spoke to Peggy, who is Dr. Middlemiss's secretary, personally, and you can call her as well. And I asked her about the superintendent appraisal plan, and she said, it's what you did last year, which is a standard form that she sends in April, that then we could have a meeting to discuss the form, but it's a form, it's nothing we could change or come up with, and this comes down to us in April. And she needs it back by mid-May.
Let me restate the problem another way, if you will. Eric. give me
go
a
ahead,
second.
sir. I'll defer and I'll come back. If you'll come back to me when you're done, I have another
I'm
point.
going to make a broader statement, not one about any particular item. It would appear to me as I sit here and I hear things and kind of gone through the training, there's a disconnect on how we believe we're to operate and the documentation that outlines how we're to operate. So kind of a broader statement I would make as new boards come in the training material that says this is your left and right limit on how you're to operate, include the appropriate documentation. If the DODI or the DODD has been addressed and superseded in some district or DODIA or some other policy, that be added into the training packet so the board members, when they're looking at the areas that we believe we have responsibility over, budget review, appraisals, things like that, there is no cloud of confusion on how that's to be operated on. It's included in the training packet. So we all have a common frame of reference. You don't need to call somebody to ask because the
Right.
answer's here.
Right.
All those things that have been superseded, like the budget over the last 10, 14 years, is included here. So we're not going down the road that we think we influence or review the budget. It's clearly stated whether we do or not. That,
I agree.
and so I think Eric is using the term transparency, I think is what is not being communicated, is what clearly our duties and responsibilities are. We're not sure.
Right,
So as we go to different venues, it's very confusing.
absolutely.
So that leads to issues. At least that's what I see
Right.
from my foxhole here.
I would add to that the only reason we're unsure is because we're receiving conflicting information. So I think you're 100% right. If you're going to say anything that is counter to or inconsistent with the Department of Defense instruction that we received, that this is a SecDef level policy, there needs to be a citation along with it so that we can see where it is written that it's been superseded. Not just, well, somebody told me that we're not doing it anymore. Because if that is what's being said, then the next question is, well, why aren't we doing it anymore? Because here, it clearly says we're supposed to be doing it. And so,
And if we're not supposed to do it anymore,
It needs
give
to
us
be
the
in
rest of
there.
it, let's move on to something
Right,
else.
Yes.
right.
Instead of wasting half a meeting discussing about.
So what
we're
we
not
have
supposed
to,
do.
so what we have to do is we have to see exactly in that packet that you received, exactly what we are no longer doing. Present those points to Dr. Calvano, because he needs to check, we can't make changes to the policy, obviously.
correct, we cannot change it.
Right. So, but if we present things that we are not doing or are not involved in, if we present this to Dr. Calvano, he then can go to general counsel and we'll see if these changes can be made, if in fact we shouldn't be doing it.
Well,
If we
there's a-
should be doing,
Yeah, well, there's an issue right there, and just how you know, in that statement alone, what we're not doing, it appears, at least on some level, that we're not doing a lot of this stuff.
right.
And I don't understand why, because it's clearly written in the policy that we should be doing it. So why aren't we doing it?
Well, I mean, I think for, in specifically, I think to the budget, I think it's because these changes came down and now it's really up to the principals. And I don't know, maybe when the principals come up, you can ask the question as to, do they have a budget committee? You know, who is involved? I don't know about that. You would have to address that with the principals. But, you know, in regards to that one point, you know, is there another big thing that you see that we should be doing that we're not doing? Just to give examples.
I'll just give you an example. You know, I just want honesty when we ask you a question.
Honesty regarding, I don't understand. See,
Okay,
you can't
so-
speak to me in emotional.
Well, no.
You know, you have to speak to me in facts.
Okay, well, I'll lay out some facts for you, since we're going to have this discussion. This is an email from you in response to a question that was asked by Mr. Aloisi. It's dated October 23rd, 2014. The same day that Mr. Aloisi first asked for information about the performance appraisal. Okay? Your response is, "Good evening, Mike. I have to ask what protocol is for us to meet and discuss the superintendent's performance appraisal plan. We did not do this last year, so I am unfamiliar with what we are allowed or not allowed to do as a board. I will try to get an answer and get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you, Diana." So just a minute ago, you outlined how you guys did fill out a form last year, and then in a later email, you outlined that again. So my question is,
But we only filled out a form.
why is it when we initially asked the question about the appraisal, we're told it wasn't done, and then we're later told, well, actually, it was done?
No, I said that we never formed a committee to discuss the superintendent appraisal plan, which is what I thought Mike was asking me, because it was at the beginning of the year when we had first come together. I thought he was asking me, where is the performance appraisal? I never saw a performance appraisal plan for last year. I saw this form that came in May. We checked off, you know, it was like a list of things that the superintendent does. We checked it off, filled it out. That's all we did. That's it. We never got together to discuss the superintendent appraisal plan, and I'm being honest with you. We never got together to discuss that as a board last year. I'm sorry if you feel I'm not being honest, Eric, but I'm giving you the best that I can with the information and with my experience, my only 1 year experience in this board. And that's how we did it last year. Right, wrong, however you may feel about it, this is how it was done.
You know, these personal attacks are not
You can stop right there, sir. This is not a
They are
personal
not
attack.
appropriate.
This is me
Yes, it
trying to
is.
clarify what is going on here.
She
So, you can
perfectly
stop right
clarified that in May, the evaluation is done. It's captured in your emails. Now, I am capturing from you that you'd like to do it now. Well, Dr. Middlemas made a decision that you don't agree with.
No, I didn't.
That's
I don't
that
have
fact.
anything to do with
Now,
that.
another
I'm
fact
trying to
is-
get clarification on why we were given one answer initially and then the answer changed
You
later
got
on.
the final
It never
answer that it's
changed.
done in May.
It's done in May, it's never changed. I never said we did something during this time of the year. I didn't see anything regarding the superintendent's
And
Oh,
if you want to continue being so personal about this, we ought to meet in executive session where you can then levy your attacks against her and me and whoever else you want to.
This is not an attack, sir.
Yes, it
Calling
is.
calling me dishonest is an
Yes, it
attack,
is.
Eric.
Yes, it is.
Well,
I'm
and I'd
sorry,
like
but
for
it
you to
is.
stop. Why don't you move on with the agenda?
Board of Education Partnership Reports for Knox High School, Dr. Mowen.
Good afternoon.
Well, we have a lot of things going on at the high school. Just to outline a couple of them, we did host our honor roll breakfast here earlier this month. It really wasn't a breakfast this time. We used to do breakfasts all the time, and the kids decided that they'd like to try something different. This time we went with an ice cream party at 2 o'clock. So that went over much better. And our PTO handles all of that. And we do appreciate all that they've done for us in that regard. We had a wonderful Veterans Day celebration. We had all of our kids into the gym. We had a wonderful speech given by Chief Aiken. He did just an outstanding job. He's the JROTC instructor. He did an outstanding job speaking with the kids and weaving in our school belief statement of respectful, responsible, and reliable behavior. I thought it went very, very well, and I think the kids did too. The kids were remarkable in how sensitive they were and tuned in to the message, and I think they were appreciative as well. And then in sports, we've got a lot of things going on. We did kick off our swim season, and the boys and girls basketball teams have been practicing. Now, this is going to be a great year all the way around. We have some returning coaches, but we have a lot of returning players. So that's an unusual occurrence for us. Most of the time, a good half, 3/4 of the team is new. So this year, we've got our hopes up that things are going to run smoothly and that we're going to have a lot to celebrate as this winter season rolls out and moves forward. Thank you.
Dr. Mallon,
you.
don't leave.
Yes, sir.
I want to publicly thank you for meeting with me this morning.
Absolutely.
Information you gave me with respect to, I guess, my job I have to do with the dress code and the work you guys have done down there at the high school and over the last year or two, looking at the dress code and some possible solutions you all came up with.
Great.
Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you, Dr. Mowen.
Thank you.
McDonald Elementary School, Ms. Laura Gibson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have a busy month ahead of us at McDonald for the rest of November and the beginning of December. Tomorrow is our Thanksgiving luncheon.